affirm the testimony.
The CEOs of Meta, TikTok, Snap, Discord, and X all got grilled by U.S. senators over accusations that their platforms are far too open to dangers for children, including sexual predators, addictive features, suicides, bullying, and eating disorders. But no one faced more heat than Meta's Mark Zuckerberg.
Senator, I view my job and the job of our company as building the best tools that we can to keep our community safe.
Well, you're failing at that.
Well, Senator, we're doing an industry-leading effort. We build AI tools
nonsense. Your product is killing people.
The hearing room was packed with families who lost loved ones to suicide or were victims of eating disorders.
Will you set up a victims' compensation fund with your money, the money you made on these families sitting behind you? Yes or no?
Senator, I don't think that that's my job is to
Sounds like a no.
Meta has introduced some child safety features to its platforms like Facebook in the past few weeks, designed to put more online distance between kids and potential dangers. But for this bipartisan group of senators, it wasn't nearly enough. And then came this moment.
There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
Zuckerberg said he was sorry for everything they had been through and that this is why his company has invested in making improvements. Social media companies are shielded from liability thanks to a law passed in the 1990s before social media even existed that protects free speech on the internet.
There's no commission to go to that can punish you. There's not one law in the book because you oppose everything we do, and you can't be sued. That has to stop, folks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zuckerberg.
For all that fury, don't expect any new laws anytime soon. Lawmakers just can't agree among themselves about specific privacy provisions. And the tech lobby is a powerful force here in Washington. Andy Roseton, TRT World.
And now some of big tech's biggest names have had a rough week with quarterly earnings disappointing investors. Is the tech bubble bursting? Let's take a look. Microsoft and Google parent Alphabet kicked off the season and they delivered, but the numbers weren't good enough, sending their stocks tumbling. Alphabet shares dropped 7.5% on Wednesday despite reporting better than expected revenues. The company missed expectations on its Google ad revenue, the heart of the tech giant's business. Microsoft's decline was less severe, with stocks falling as much as 2.7%, pushing the company's market capitalization down below $3 trillion. Its all-important cloud revenues grew thanks to its artificial intelligence efforts, which the company said contributed 6 percentage points of growth to Azure revenue, up from 3 percentage points last quarter. The company's soft outlook for the current quarter, however, overshadowed the earnings and revenue beat. Shares of chipmaker AMD also dropped around 6% despite profits meeting expectations as it projects lower than expected revenue in the first quarter of this year. Its stock is up 137% in the past year on the excitement about its artificial intelligence processors. AMD is battling Nvidia for its position in the AI chip business. Meanwhile, Facebook parent Meta's shares surged 15% as profits soared 200% year-on-year to $14 billion. It also announced its first ever dividend of 50 cents per share and an additional $50 billion share buyback. The jump in share price added more than $140 billion to Meta's market capitalization, whose value recently surpassed $1 trillion. The company's virtual reality unit, however, recorded a massive operating loss of $4.65 billion. Amazon reported a record-breaking holiday season with a 14% jump in revenues to $170 billion, indicating that cost-cutting efforts, which included 27 layoffs, are paying off. The e-commerce giant also gave strong guidance for the current quarter. And finally, Apple reported bumper first quarter earnings on better than anticipated iPhone sales. The sales out of China, the company's third largest region after North America and Europe, were lower than expected and sent the company's shares down 1%. Let's get more on this now with Scott Devitt in Hohokus in New Jersey. He's Managing Director of Equity Research and Internet at Wedbush Securities. Thank you very much for being with us today. Right, so a very good week for the so-called Magnificent Seven, right? We were referring to them as the FANGs a few years ago. What is this telling us, really, about the tech sector in the US?
Well, I think the tech sector is very strong, and particularly, four companies are kind of leading the charge right now. It's Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, and Meta are taking, the lead, the fearsome foursome, if you will, out of the Magnificent Seven. But the results last night out of Amazon and Meta were extremely strong: profitability, revenue growth, and I think that's indicative of a healthy economy and an industry that's got its legs back under it post-pandemic.
Interesting. Speaking about Apple, the company reported fiscal first quarter earnings that beat estimates for revenue and earnings, but it posted a 13% decline in sales in China. How worrying a sign is this? How important a market is China for Apple?
Oh, it's important. It's 20% of revenue. Apple's faced this before and gotten through it, and we anticipate that will be the case again, but it is definitely something worth monitoring. Because that's what's holding back the stock right now. And as you noted, that's the contributing factor for why revenues decline so much.
And also, I want to say this was interesting because actually after a brutal 2022, Meta strongly rebounded now, right? And a significant part of that recovery this year is actually driven by Chinese demand. I mean, Chinese retailers wanting to pouring money into ads on Facebook and Instagram. Can you help us understand how?
Sure. So the Apple impact is driven by the economy in China. The impact to Meta's business from the Chinese retailers is from the Chinese retailers advertising on Meta in places outside of China. So most notably Temu and Shein. Those two companies, do quite a bit of business in the Western world, in the US and Europe, and they're spending advertising dollars aggressively on Meta, and that's helping the bottom line and driving a couple percentage points of top line growth as well.
Meta's CEO, Zuckerberg, said advances in AI really helped bolster its ad business, which is indeed growing faster than its rival Google's. Is AI projected to help these giant tech firms in the near future really be a hamper? For instance, we've been talking a lot about job losses and substitution there. How is AI, is it really helping?
It's early days in terms of generative AI anyway. I mean, AI has been infused in these businesses for decades, but these large language models providing incremental information in this kind of phase that we're heading into over the next decade is quite additive to these large tech companies in terms of revenue opportunity and profitability. Now, the implications in terms of human labor is a different question, and that could be problematic. But in terms of profitability and revenue growth for the companies, each one of the Mag 7 have different angles on this AI theme, but they're all extremely well positioned.
I do want to ask you a final question on geopolitical tensions as well, because we've seen a really good performance for this tech sector. What is it really telling us about the broader economy in the US? We are seeing the US economy performing better than the European economy, possibly because these geopolitical tensions are impacting the Europe and the Middle East more than they are impacting the US economy. Is that correct, in your opinion? And also, what is this telling us about the broader economy?
Well, the U.S. economy is strong. I think that what this is telling us more so than that, though, is that the technology industry is particularly strong. You had the benefit from the pandemic, which brought forward some business. You had a year in 2022 where this industry gave it all back as if the secular run was over, and that was just a false narrative. And so starting in 23, and I'd say for the next 5 to 10 years, you're back to what these companies were before, which is compounding businesses that dominate their industries. And that's kind of the story: good economy, bad economy, or in between.